when you feel lonely for a second. Do you feel lonely, or do you feel like it's a break when I'm not over here?
There's no one here beside. Oh wait, there is.
This is mine.
What if I wanted to read?
Well, you should probably learn how. I'm just kidding. That's what I do when I think I'm really funny, but she would say I'm not.
He might as well just be like boom boom himself
Really my version
after
of that.
every pun.
Alright, let's see. So,
Hi
guys. Sorry we're late for Bible study. I was making some repairs on our car, which always sucks, but I'm thankful that I have the ability to do it and that I was able to figure out and solve the problem. So it definitely could be worse. I'm thankful for the blessing of being able to do that, and it wasn't worse than it was. But still trying with time and everything. Nobody likes doing that stuff. Alright, so let's see. Last week, did you guys tune in?
3 weeks ago?
My bad. Was chapter 7, The Battle Begins. So, it's kind of hard to recap. So let's just do a brief overall recap. So we had God made the earth, made Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve sinned because they listened to the serpent, listened to Satan. Separated man from God. Generations later, there was Abram and his wife Sarah, soon to be Abraham, and God promised him a nation to descend through him. Abraham didn't listen, slept with his servant, had a son, had to send him away and his servant away because his wife was jealous. And then his wife gave birth to Isaac, and Isaac was a true descendant for Abraham. And then he told Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. He listened, and at the last second God stopped him from sacrificing Isaac and just wanted to see if Abraham truly loved God and trusted him above all else. And then generations later we had Joseph, who was the son of Jacob. Jacob we know as wrestling with God and taking his brother's blessing for himself, which we don't talk about in here. Joseph was sold into slavery. He was wrongfully accused and imprisoned. He interpreted dreams and prevented a famine in Egypt, was able to be in a position of authority, and instead of taking revenge on his brothers, he blessed them. Out of Egypt, we had Moses was born. He grew up as essentially a prince of Egypt, but after wrongfully killing somebody who was harming a Hebrew, he got scared and ran away, got married. God spoke to him through a bush, said, go back there and free your people. After 10 plagues and going back and forth with Pharaoh, they crossed the Red Sea, and Pharaoh chased after them because his heart was hard, if you remember that. And the sea caved in, and Moses and the Hebrews were able to get away, but Pharaoh and his soldiers drowned. After that, they were traveling, and they kept refusing to listen to God, refusing to trust God, kept making false idols, kept letting fear, pride, and those sort of things control their lives, mainly fear. And so God essentially said, well, you got to look at the promised land for 40 days, and because you will not listen to me, will not trust me, and you got to be in it for 40 days, you're going to travel for 40 years until you can learn to trust and obey me and respect me. And so they did travel 40 years. In the meantime, some things happened. They got the 10 Commandments, which they learned to follow. I mean, never perfectly, but they did improve over the 40 years. And there's some hardships about trusting God, some lessons learned throughout that. And God even made water come from a rock. There was a lot going on with Moses, some betrayal, some people dying, some famine. But over the 40 years, essentially at the end, they learned that they were going to trust God. Moses gave a great speech about the 10 Commandments and all the commandments God wanted them to follow and to continue to put their trust in God, which they won't, but Moses still tried. Moses died, didn't see the promised land, put Joshua in charge, and that's where we left off last week. As Joshua's now in charge, he sent spies to the land to see if it's good, how the people look. I mean, it's been 40 years, talking a whole new generation here. So, let's pick up with some review with last week's chapter. And do you want the hard questions first or the easy questions first?
Like I have a choice.
You do have a choice. I'll give you whatever order you want. You want hard first, easy first?
Hard first.
Okay. What was the name of the girl that hid the spies?
No clue.
Was it A, Ruth, B, Rahab, or C, Sarah?
Rahab.
Correct. It was Rahab. How many spies were hidden?
3.
A, 1, B, 2, C, 3.
3.
2. 2 spies were hidden. I think the first time they went, they sent 3 spies, so it was 7. Alright. And then God told them, once they came back, they're like, alright, we'll surely take the land. God's on our side. They made a deal with Rahab and said, because you're good to us and because you fear God, we won't kill you when we come back to take the city. But do this. What was she told to do? As a sign.
She had to sacrifice
No.
a lamb and put the blood on the door.
No. You're thinking of Egypt.
Oh.
They left her.
A red something to tie around the door.
Correct. It was a red headband. They left her. He said, tie this around the door so we know not to enter. So the people were fearful, but they were still not worried because they had a great wall built around the city. What did God instruct them to do as a sign of faith to show they were ready to take the city?
Walk around the wall 7 days with no noise.
Okay. And on the 7th day, how many times were they supposed to walk around?
7 times.
Alright. And how many priests were there?
7?
How many trumpets were there?
7?
Correct.
Did they blow the trumpets?
I believe 7 times. Yeah. God's number of completion, the number of days it took to complete the creation. So, what happened after that? They blew the trumpets, they marched around the city 7 times, and God told them what would happen.
The walls would fall.
Yep, and they seized the city, they killed everybody with the exception of...
Rahab and her family.
Exactly. And they seized the city, and Joshua and his generation were good people of God, but of course that didn't last very long. But they took the land, they took several lands surrounding that land as well, and created the nation of Israel, and they would eventually have 12 tribes, 12 nations. So, chapter 8 is titled A Few Good Men, ... and women. I feel like it's necessary to put that many periods to say ... The people served the Lord as long as Joshua lived. They also served him as long as the elders lived. Those were the elders who lived longer than Joshua did. They had seen all of the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua, the servant of the Lord, died. He was the son of Nun. He was 110 years old when he died. All of the people of Joshua's time joined the members of their families who had already died. Then those who were born after them grew up. They didn't know the Lord. They didn't know what he had done for Israel. The people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. They served the gods that were named after Baal. They deserted the Lord, the God of their people. He had brought them out of Egypt, but now the people of Israel followed other gods and worshipped them. They served the gods of the nations that were around them. They made the Lord angry because they deserted him, and they served Baal. They also served the goddesses that were named after Ashtoreth. So I just want to point out, it happens time and time again. God performs great miracles and goes through great lengths to show his power and to demand fear and respect, and to show his presence, and that he is a very real and living God. And they believe him for a little while because they've witnessed with their own eyes. And as soon as a generation or two goes by that has not witnessed God, and we see this time and time again throughout the Bible, they turn away from God. And I don't think our generation's any different. You know, it wasn't that long ago, really, that Jesus lived. We're talking 2,000 years ago. And all the miraculous things he did, and then his disciples after him did. And, you know, because we haven't seen these things with our own eyes, we choose not to believe, even though it wasn't that long ago that people saw and witnessed with their own eyes, that people knew without a doubt there was a living God who had seen his hand work. But we turn away because we're not eyewitnesses to it. Jesus said, "You believe because you see, but blessed are those who believe and never see." So, you know, God knew it was going to be an issue, and I think, especially now with all the technologies we have, there's no way he would want to do a great spectacle like that, because he wants people to choose to believe out of faith, not believe because they saw necessarily. And, you know, he even says, for some people, seeing wouldn't be enough anyway. God sent enemies to punish the Israelites. When they cried for help, God gave them a leader, called a judge, to save and protect them from the enemy. Israel had many judges, including Ehud, Deborah, Gideon, and Samson. Samson was Israel's personal superhero. God made him really strong. No one could beat Samson, especially the Philistines. The Philistines wanted to know Samson's weakness, and they found out what it was when Samson got involved with a very dangerous Philistine woman. Samson fell in love. The woman lived in the valley of Sorek, and her name was Delilah. The rulers of Philistine went to her. They said, "See if you can get him to tell you the secret of why he's so strong. Find out how we can overpower him. Then we can tie him up. We can bring him under our control. Each of us will give you 28 pounds of silver." That's sad to know that this betrayal was worth more than the betrayal of Jesus Christ. Just saying. So Delilah spoke to Samson. She said, "Tell me the secret of why you are so strong. Tell me how you can be tied up and controlled." Samson answered her, "Let someone tie me up with 7 new leather straps. They must be straps that aren't completely dry. Then I'll become as weak as any other man." So the Philistine rulers brought 7 new leather straps to her. They weren't completely dry. Delilah tied Samson up with them. Men were hiding in the room. She called out to him. She said, "Samson, the Philistines are attacking you." But he snapped the leather straps easily. They were like pieces of string that had come close to a flame. So the secret of why he was so strong wasn't discovered. Delilah spoke to Samson again. "You have made me look foolish," she said. "You told me a lie. Come on, tell me how you can be tied up." Samson said, "Let someone tightly tie me with new rope. They must be ropes that have never been used. Then I'll become as weak as any other man." So Delilah got some new rope. She tied him up with them. Men were hiding in the room. She called out to him. She said, "Samson, the Philistines are attacking you." But he snapped the ropes off of his arms. They fell off just as they were thread. Delilah spoke to Samson again. "Until now, you have been making me look foolish," she said. "You've been telling me lies. This time, really tell me how you can be tied up."
Don't do it.
He replied, "Weave the 7 braids of my hair into the cloth on a loom, then pin my hair to the loom. If you do, I'll become as weak as any other man." So while Samson was sleeping, Delilah took hold of the 7 braids of his hair. She wove them into the cloth on a loom, and she pinned his hair to the loom. Again she called to him. She said, "Samson, the Philistines are attacking you." He woke up from his sleep. He pulled the pin of the loom together with the cloth. Then she said to him, "How can you say, 'I love you'? You won't even share your secret with me. This is the 3rd time you made me look foolish, and you still haven't told me the secret of why you are so strong." She continued to pester him day after day. She nagged him until he was sick and tired of it. Typical girl. So he told her everything. "I've never used a razor on my head," he said. "I've never cut my hair. That's because I've been a Nazarite since the day I was born. A Nazarite is set apart to God. If you shave my head, I won't be strong anymore. I'll become as weak as any other man." Delilah realized he had told her everything, so she sent a message to the Philistine rulers. She said, "Come back one more time. He has told me everything." So the rulers returned. They brought the silver with them. Delilah got Samson to go to sleep on her lap. Then she called for a man to shave off the 7 braids of his hair. That's how she began to bring him under her control, and he wasn't strong anymore. She called out, "Samson, the Philistines are attacking you." He woke up from his sleep. He thought, "I'll go out just as I did before. I'll shake myself free." But he didn't know that the Lord had left him. Then the Philistines grabbed hold of him. They poked his eyes out. That's a way to phrase it, I guess. They took him down to Gaza, and they put bronze chains on him. Then they made him grind grain in the prison. His head had been shaved, but the hair on it began to grow again. The rulers of the Philistines gathered together. They were going to offer a great sacrifice to their god, Dagon. They were going to celebrate. They said, "Our God has handed over our enemy Samson to us." When the people saw Samson, they praised their God. They said, "Our God has handed our enemy over to us. Bring Samson out. Let him put on a show for us." So they called Samson out of the prison. He put on a show for them. They said they had him stand near the temple pillar. Then he spoke to the servant who was holding his hand. He said, "Put me where I can feel the pillars." I'm talking about the ones that hold the temple up. I want to lean against them. Then he prayed to the Lord. He said, "Lord and King, show me that you still have concern for me. God, please make me strong just one more time." Then Samson reached toward the 2 pillars that were in the middle of the temple. They held the temple up. He put his right hand over one of them and his left hand over the other. He leaned hard against them, then pushed with all his might. The temple came down on the rulers. It fell on all of the people who were in it. So Samson killed many more Philistines when he died than when he ever lived. Samson was considered a hero to God's people because of what he did, even though he didn't live up to the great gift God gave him all the time. God still used him to fulfill his plan.
Ow. You stepped on my baby.
So, let's talk about Samson. First off, there's a little more to the story. Samson was promised to God from his birth not to cut his hair set apart. He was given great strength. He married a woman who was a Philistine, actually. And the Philistines were so mad that there was this mixed race going on that they killed his wife while he wasn't home. So now he's upset. So it says he got the jawbone.
His kids too, right?
Maybe. I don't know if he had kids or not. He had a kid. He had a baby. But
just kidding.
So he grabbed the jawbone of a donkey, it says. He killed 1,000 men. Crazy story. Pretty awesome. And he was strong. He constantly would go out and cause trouble for the Philistines. Well, after his wife had died, he gave in to lust. He lusted after a prostitute named Delilah. And I don't really think he loved her. He lusted after her. And she eventually got the secret out of him, what gave him his strength. Now, they're under the impression it was his hair. His hair was just a symbol of his covenant with God. The fact that he let lust get in the way and gave that information over to somebody, I believe, is why God took away his power in that moment, is it was his sin that was holding him back in his relationship covenant with God. Mm-hmm. Had nothing to do with his hair. God was the essence of his power. His hair is just a covenant. Well, he went to prison. He was tortured. His eyes were gouged out. All true. And while he was in there, he prayed to God and said, "God, please be with me." Brought down the pillars, killed more than 1,000, because it says more than when he ever lived, of the people who were in there. And all the Philistines died in that temple with him. So that's the story of Samson. And God was able to use him in mighty, miraculous ways.
And it was like majority of like the rulers, right?
Yeah, it was all the high elected officials, a big banquet, it said. And so he was able to cause quite a dent with the Philistines there. Let me see if I can remember about the other judges real quick. So Deborah, I believe, led waged a war with another land. A ruler came and fled and tried to go into one of the tents of another girl, and she stabbed him through the head with a tent stake. Something along those lines. That's just one of the other judges. So judges were just people who took up the role of leadership during the times where the Israelites didn't have like an elected leader. There was no Joshua, Moses, David. They just had a few people they looked up to that really took it upon themselves, and who God was with, that they were able to really take that role of leadership among their community, and they were called judges. So that's the story goes. It's First Judges, Second Judges in your Bibles, and that's where that takes place. Next, we'll be about the faithful foreign woman. It's a great story about Naomi and Ruth. Yeah, and it's an amazing story about mother-daughter, sisterly like bond, and it's a great story. It's one of my favorites. We did a whole sermon and Bible study on it before, so you guys will really enjoy that next week. We'll have a good quiz next week as well, so I look forward to that. Please like, comment, share this video, get the Bible studies out there. You can always look back at our previous videos. If you just look for this couch, we only use it when we do the Bible study, so any video you see in our album and videos with the couch will be a Bible study. And this was chapter 8, so next week will be our 9th. But as always, thanks for joining us on the couch, guys. We look forward to Bible study next week, and never lose hope.
You don't know what tomorrow may bring.